Hello, I'm Carl Seibert. Thanks for joining me. Google has just announced that it will support some Iptc metadata fields in Google Images. This is really great news. The fields that they're supporting are 3 fields that have to do with your copyright. So this, I think, is a really good time to go over adding metadata to your photos. For this video, we'll use Photo Mechanic. So let's just jump into it. In Photo Mechanic, you have several alternatives for how to do this. Many photographers like to add metadata right at the beginning of their workflow, maybe to every single image they shoot. And actually, there's probably nothing wrong with that. You do have to think through your workflow, and you might not want to completely mark up with metadata every single image. But boilerplate metadata, including that copyright information, is probably perfectly safe to put on every single image that you shoot. That choice is yours. In any case, we have called up Photo Mechanic's Ingest Dialog. Now, ingest in Photo Mechanic is kind of like import in a database-based photo management program like Lightroom, except Photo Mechanic works entirely in a files and folders environment. So there is no database, there is no permanent collection, and it's not a digital asset management system. However, we still have this ingest function, and what ingest does is it goes to a disk or a folder or a network share or whatever, and it grabs all the pictures and copies them to a designated place on your computer. And ingest can do this incrementally so that you can shoot some pictures on a disk, copy them onto your computer, stick the disk back in the camera, shoot some more copies, or shoot some more pictures, and then copy those over. It's a pretty powerful function, and it's used a lot by Photo Mechanic power users. So here we are, we're in the ingest dialog. And the first thing we want to do is we want to check our preset and make sure that we have the preset selected for what we want to do. Now, the ingest dialog is covered in much more detail in my main Photo Mechanic how-to. But we'll select our camera disk that we just put in. And we will turn off incremental ingest because I've ingested these pictures before. These are demo pictures. While we're ingesting, we can do all sorts of interesting things to our pictures. Among them, applying standing Iptc metadata. So to do that, we will go over here to this part of the dialog, and we will make sure that Apply Iptc Stationary Pad to Photos is ticked if we want to do this. And we want to tick this radio button, Use Local Iptc Stationary. What that radio button does for us is it will save in the preset settings for this dialog, the snapshot in Photo Mechanic. It will save in the ingest dialog's snapshot whatever settings we put in the Iptc stationary pad. So in other words, we choose the right ingest preset, and it will choose the right Iptc preset for metadata to put on our pictures automatically. So let's open the Iptc stationary pad, and we'll just clear it, and we'll load a template. Now, it's really important to use a template for all your standing metadata. This is the metadata that doesn't change from picture to picture. So it's your copyright information, it's your contact information, it's your byline, it's things like that. Not only do you not want to take the time and effort to change these or to retype this stuff for every single picture that you make, it's not a good idea to try. Human beings don't do repetitive work like that terribly well, and consistency is really important. And trust me, I have never seen a human being, much less a creative human being like a photographer, be able to type repetitive stuff over and over again. So templates are critical. So let's go to the Load button in our stationary pad, and we'll click it. And we will bring in a template. Now, this template is stored in a .xmp file, which works for Photo Mechanic, it works for Photoshop, it works for Adobe Bridge. And it came from my website, and the link is in the description down below. It comes in a zip file, And you'll find the XMP version of the template in that zip file. You'll also find a JPEG version of the template in the zip file. The JPEG version will work with any photo management software that there is. Any photo management software that's capable of creating a preset can create one based on information that it finds in a JPEG, including Photo Mechanic, if that's the way you want to go. However, we have loaded the starter template. Now, the way the starter template works, obviously, you go through this thing, and it has placeholder type everywhere, and you remove all of the references to our friend, Joe Photographer, and Joe Photographer's initials here, and replace them with your own information. And then save the template out as your own template. We'll just use this thing as it stands with Joe Photographer, our favorite, or one of our favorite, imaginary photographers. And we'll just leave his information right here. Now, the three fields that Google is supporting are the creator field, which we see here, and it has Joe Photographer's placeholder name in it. The credit field, which we see here, and those two are supported today in Google Images. And, quote, in coming weeks, the copyright field will also be supported. So this is your basic core of copyright management information. And this stuff doesn't change from picture to picture. You might have a couple of versions of templates, and you might change some of these values according to whether you're going to release a picture under Creative Commons or perhaps what client you're working for. But let's take a look at these three fields particularly, and we'll see what Google's doing. The creator's pretty obvious. It's your name. It could possibly, in some cases, be the name of a company or a studio, but generally it's the photographer's name. The copyright notice is also pretty obvious. And copyright notices basically have three elements in them. One is the word copyright or the copyright symbol, and this one has placeholders for both. We have the year of first publication of the picture or the year of its creation. It's usually the same thing. And in Photo Mechanic, you can put a variable in this spot that will automatically fill in the year so that you don't have to remember to update your template every New Year's Day. That's a pretty cool thing. And of course, the copyright notice has the name of the photographer. One of the purposes of a copyright notice, and the Copyright Office itself will tell you this in their documentation, is to help honest would-be users of a photo find the copyright owner and get in touch with them to obtain a license, presumably. So I think it's a really good idea in your copyright to add a fourth element, some really brief bit of contact information. In Joe's case, he's put his phone number here. It could be a web URL or an email address, but it will all work. Some people also put a rights statement in their copyright notice. Now, frankly, there's a better place for that in your metadata. Here it is, right in the rights usage terms. But it doesn't hurt anything to put that statement in your copyright notice if you want to. That's a particular import if you're releasing pictures under Creative Commons, because that piece of additional information here in the copyright notice could actually give a potential Creative Commons user all the information that they need to go ahead and legally use the picture again under Creative Commons license. So that's pretty cool. Now, Google hasn't implemented the copyright field yet. So we don't know if there's going to be a problem with a character limit or something like that. We don't know exactly how the format is going to work. So we'll leave a final determination for exactly how to do your copyright notice up in the air for the time being. Now, a copyright notice in and of itself is optional since about 1989 under copyright law. The format of it is not strictly governed either. It doesn't matter, really, as long as you communicate what you need to communicate. All that said, it's time for the disclaimer. If you have particular needs, you should get in touch with a good copyright attorney. So there. Now we have the credit field. And the placeholder text in our credit field is Susie and Joe's studio. Now, our imaginary photographer, Joe, and his imaginary sister, Susie, have a studio together. And there it is. The credit field is perhaps the most misunderstood field in all of metadata, or at least that's the impression that I get after having explained it for 15 years to software developers, photographers, designers, and all sorts of other people, many of whom still don't quite get it. At one time, the credit field, which is now, by the way, called the credit line field by the Iptc and credit by Google, is where you put the name of the organization that's responsible for the picture or is distributing the picture, which is not necessarily, by the way, the same as the owner of the picture. Or to put it another way, if you're a photographer, the credit field contains who you're working for. If you look at credits under most pictures, they're very often compound. For a real-life example, we could have Joe Radel / Getty Images. Okay, Joe Radel would go in the creator field, it's the name of the photographer, and he's a staff photographer for Getty Images, so Getty Images' name would go in the credit field. And if you're doing Creative Commons, you could put your Creative Commons license in the credit field as well, under the same principle. That would make a credit in the published photo that would be the name of the photographer, and a / and the particular Creative Commons license. So that works out all very nicely, except that over the years, people have not understood that very well. And many photographers have put the entire string of what they want their credit or byline to be in this field. That makes me crazy because it's mixing two kinds of data in one field, which I don't think is a good data management practice. However, it remains to be seen how Google image users are going to expect this field to work. And my data management sensibilities notwithstanding, basically, however Google users decide this field should be, is how we should do it. So it may come to pass that in this field, we will put our entire credit or byline. So it would be, in this case, Joe Photographer and some piece of punctuation, Susie and Joe's Studio. Photographers working independently haven't even had to worry about the credit field at all, really, until now. Now we do. If you're an independent photographer, you can just put your name in this field, and it'll work either way. That's what your byline is going to be, no problem. If, in fact, you're working for a client or an organization, or you need to put something in this field, and again, in terms of credits as seen by the public, this would be the bit after the / or the pipe or the comma or whatever. We'll just have to wait and see how this is going to go. The rest of this template is filled out with stuff that doesn't change from photo to photo. We have a section for the contact information. This is Joe Photographer's contact information. And here we have placeholders for Joe's physical address. We have a placeholder for Joe's email. We can have more than one. We have the placeholder for Joe's phone number. Again, we can have more than one. And we have Joe's website. And again, we can have more than one. And by and large, this kind of stuff just doesn't change. So once you've edited your template and you've saved it under the name that you want to use with it, it's good to go. And we can close our stationery. Now, in actual use, if we were ingesting this disk, all we would do is we would very quickly check to see that we have the right preset set. And if we want to make any momentary changes, any changes just for this ingest, like for instance, turning off incremental ingest, we just do that and we just press the button. And we don't really even have to think about applying metadata to all these pictures because it's just going to happen as they're ingested. And now the pictures are ingested and they're copied to a subfolder marked with today's date in a folder that I made for demo pictures on my desktop. And we can take a look here. We'll click the I button, or we could use the I key, or we could go to the menus and we'll pull up the Iptc editor. And this is the one at a time metadata editor in Photo Mechanic. And here we have our standing template applied to this picture and all of its friends that we ingested at the same time. Now, What if we want to go to our camera disk and only choose some photos to download? Well, we can take care of that too. So here we are in Photo Mechanic, and we've navigated back to our camera disk, and we will just open the subfolder in the DCIM folder that contains our photos. And we see a warning that says that the disk is read-only. That's kind of comforting because that means that we can't do anything to hurt our original pictures on our disk. And so let's say we've gone through these photos and we've decided that we want to download several of them. So I'll tag several photos here. And we'll show only the tagged photos. Here they are. And we'll select them all. And we'll use Command Y to bring up the copy dialog. And look what we have here. We can apply Iptc stationery to our files as we copy them. And we can open our stationery pad and make sure that we've chosen the right template. And that'll be fine. We close our stationery and we hit copy. And we go to our demo folder. And there we have it. All of our photos are copied to the destination folder, and the standing template information is added to the photos. So what if we already have our photos in a folder on our computer and we just want to add metadata to them? Well, in this case, we just select them. We open our Iptc stationery pad either from the right-click menu, from the main menus at the top of the program, or with the Command I button. We once again make sure that we have the right template selected, and we apply it to the selected photos. And here it is. It's on all of the photos that we've selected. Now we have our standing information, our copyright information, on all of our photos. We've done ourselves a solid as far as Google is concerned, and half the battle is won. But we don't live by Google alone, and indeed, it's only half the battle. Now we really need to go back into our pictures and individually caption each picture. Captions are critically important, and if you go to my blog and search for captions, I've written about writing good captions several times. It's important at the very, very, very least that you at least have something in your caption field, like your name. And in this particular case, this template has Joe Photographer's byline already in the caption field. And that's really handy because the byline should go with every caption. And if we forget to put a caption on the photo, it tells someone looking at this photo, if all they see is the caption field, that at least we know it's a photo by Joe Photographer. And at least we know that it has some metadata, and we can probably find Joe's contact information in here as well. So that part of your caption should be already in your standing template. But let's go ahead and caption this particular picture. Okay, so there we have a caption, and we can write this caption, and we can use the button to save it to the photo and move on to the next photo and write another caption. Now that's cool, but what if we have parts of our caption that are going to stay the same amongst many photos, or maybe even the whole caption? Well, we have, once again, in Photo Mechanic, several options. A very simple one is to use the copy and paste buttons in the Iptc editor. They'll copy and paste all of our Iptc data, and we can move ahead to the next photo, and we can simply paste it in. Now, we've copied and pasted all of our standing information as well, but we just put it there. We know for a fact that this information is the same for all the pictures in this folder, so that's a perfectly valid way to do this. Obviously, we can simply copy and paste using the operating system's clipboard from one caption to another, that'll work too. We have some more clever alternatives. This is photomechanic after all, and you do, as they say, get what you pay for. So let's say we have this second part of our caption, and most captions are like this. The first sentence of a caption talks about what's going on in the specific photo, and that's what we really need captions for. Photos are specific, and we need to know what's going on in a particular photo. But very often context is important too. Not only that, but a sentence of context also adds nice search terms that will be really helpful when we go to look for this photo. And someday, if Google supports captions, it'll help us there too. Google is not reading our captions, or at least not admitting to it just yet. They're certainly not displaying captions to us yet in Google Images. So we have this line here, which is WidgetCo, which is our favorite imaginary company and a frequent client of Joe and Susie, is expanding into the music business and has bought many record stores. Let's correct that typo. And has bought many record stores, including Jones. And we'll copy that, cancel out of the Iptc editor, and we'll say, yeah, sure, save our changes. And we will bring back our stationery pad and clear it. And paste that sentence into the caption in our stationery pad. Now, you'll notice when I cleared the stationery pad and took all the information out of all these fields, the tick marks disappeared out of all these tick boxes. That turned off all of those fields. So the stationery pad won't do anything to any of those fields when we apply it. In other words, it won't overwrite any of our templated standing metadata, which would be really important if, say, some of these photos were done for one client and some were done for another, or some were going to be Creative Commons and some weren't, or something like that. So we are only going to write the caption, just this one sentence of the caption, to the pictures that we select. And we have, in addition to the tick box to turn on the caption, we have choices in the caption field in Photomechanic. We can prepend what we write here, we can append what we write here, or we can simply overwrite whatever we find in the caption field. So in this case, we'll add a couple of spaces at the end to pad away Joe's byline. We're going to prepend this information, prefix in Photomechanic's dropdown. We're going to prepend this sentence to whatever pictures we select. So, okay, we can close our stationery and we'll go, oh, okay, this is a record store picture. We'll select this one and we'll select this one. And let's see if there are any more record store pictures here. Yeah, there's a record store picture and there's a record store picture. And now we will apply our Iptc stationery pad to all of those photos. There you have it. And we'll look at one. And now we have that sentence of context placed into our caption ahead of the photographer's byline that was already there. So that's pretty cool. And you can use a technique like that and several passes to go through your pictures until they're all captioned properly. And keywords work the same way. Keywords tend to be applied in batches, and you can use the stationery pad to apply them in different passes through your pictures as you go along, either when you do your captions or separately. And we'll just take a look at that, and we'll bring up our stationery pad once again, and we'll notice in the keywords field, we can turn it on, and we can add a keyword in here. We'll add music, and we'll add another keyword that says retail, for example. And they're separated by a comma and a space. And here we have an extra tick box and a plus sign. The extra tick box turns on append. And basically, Photomechanic allows you to append more and more keywords with every pass through the pictures. Now, there are other ways to keyword in Photomechanic. There are lots of other ways to keyword in Photomechanic, including incredibly sophisticated ways to keyword for power users. And there is a series of videos on this channel and a series of posts on my blog that talk about keywording and the considerations for keywording and how to do it in Photo Mechanic. And basically, keywords are optional. The caption is really important because it's telling everybody, us in the future and the whole world, exactly what is in the photo, and that gives the photo its significance. It also helps us find the photo in a digital assets management system because we can search for it. Keywords extend that functionality. They're just some extra search terms that we're putting here on our picture that don't necessarily appear in our caption that we can use to search later. Now, for most photographers, keywords are really optional. Most photographers will opt to use them probably at one time or another, but they aren't as necessary as captions or our standing copyright information. An exception to that is stock photography, where keywords rule. Keywords are more important in stock photography than captions are. But again, that's all discussed in a series of videos on keywording, and specifically on keywording in Photo Mechanic. So there you are. We've protected our copyrights. We've made Google happy, which in turn is going to make our clients happy. And that part of the process took actually exactly no work on our part at all. And then we've seen some powerful tools that we can use to go back and caption and keyword our pictures. Now that will take a little bit of work, maybe as much as a minute per photo or so, but it's totally worth it. I highly, highly recommend that you take the extra time to go back and caption and keyword your photos properly for your own benefit as well as everybody else's. And as for the Google part, your copyright and your contact information, that's a no-brainer. It should be on every picture that you publish or share, or maybe even every single picture that you shoot. There is a video on this channel that talks about deciding whether or not you want to use metadata on every single picture that you shoot, or only on some. And I recommend that if you want to dive in deeper. So until next time, thank you for watching. Reach out in the comments or on social media, and be sure to check the description for helpful links, for instance, to the starter templates and to some relevant blog posts. And, as always, mind your metadata.